All right, welcome back to the No Cap Sports Football Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Robinson.
And I'm David Medina, and let's get right into this week.
All right, before we actually get into any of the games, recapping what happened this week, we're going to talk about some news that's going on today. 8 positive COVID tests coming out of that Titans and Vikings game. Protocol is still trying to be seen. I don't know if this is going to be another baseball situation where it's kind of be a wait and see, and we're going to change what's going to happen with each individual case of this happening, but what has come out so far is 8 players. 3 names have been put on the COVID/reserve list for the Tennessee Titans. No major players, I believe. It was our long snapper, a backup D tackle, and a backup tight end. But how do you think this week's going to look? Because, I mean, they're not going to have any games on Saturday. They're not going to be able to practice until Saturday. They're still supposed to play on Sunday. I know there's contingency plans to play on Monday if everything falls through, but this is where the league gets tested on all their procedures that they've been doing. Because up until this week, it's been clean. They've been living nice. They look like everything was positive, and now this wrinkle, how are they going to adjust, and how our team's going to come back from this? What are your thoughts on this situation?
So I don't know everything about the situation, but so is it only the Titans that aren't going to be able to practice until Saturday?
The Vikings too. The Vikings and Titans have suspended team activities.
So, that's obviously going to affect, the Titans and the Vikings, but that's something that the Steelers, they could take a little advantage of because they do play the Titans this week. So they could get a little extra preparation, and as well as the Texans because they play the Vikings this week. But yeah, you're right. We're going to see how the league's going to we're going to see how well they're going to handle this. And if, this comes and goes, no problem, we're not going to have a problem, I think, for the rest of the football season. But say if this starts getting worse and it might get to, who knows, it could get to the point where they maybe postpone the game or something. Then we're going to start, having a lot of questions and seeing some potential problems. But I'm hoping for the best. We're all hoping that this is just going to be a little thing. We were talking before this podcast, the name of the players. I've never heard of one name of any of these dudes like that. It's not like, it's not like you got Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and Jadeveon Clowney, testing positive with COVID for the Titans. It's, 3 depth players, not too big of a deal, and hopefully it doesn't affect this week too much.
How dare you have never heard of long snapper Bo Brinkley? Wow. Okay.
What's a long snapper?
I thought you were a friend of the long snapper community. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, maybe we'll see some errant snaps this week, and that might cost the Titans. That's something we might want to keep an eye on this week.
Yeah, the other 2 players were Daquan Jones and Tommy Hudson. That's been reported so far. Anything else? Any other news? I don't believe so. Yeah, nothing.
Before we get started,
yeah.
For in the world of football, quick shout out. I've been calling it.
We can
boy
talk about
KJ Costello.
Let's talk about what happened Saturday. Yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit.
KJ Costello, I've been saying, I've always – it's in 2017 when Stanford was having woes at the quarterback position, they had this badass freshman named KJ Costello. He was a redshirt freshman, and I remember I've had season tickets for Stanford for years, and we always have these big tailgate parties. And I remember talking with a few of the guys at the tailgate before the UCLA game in 2017, and I said, why don't we give the redshirt freshman KJ a chance? He's supposed to be badass. What do they have to lose? And that game, Stanford starter got hurt. They put in KJ. They put up 56 points. Never really looked back. KJ led them to the Pac-12 championship, where they eventually would lose in a very tight contest against the USC Trojans. But KJ, went off that year, 2018, came back, put up great numbers. I think the second best numbers in Stanford history behind Andrew Luck. And I was just a big fan of him. Last year he got injured, decided to transfer, went to Mississippi State, the air raid offense with Mike Leach. And I said, KJ has got big potential there because Mike Leach in the air raid system has turned, community college quarterbacks like Gardner Minshew from East Carolina to absolute, just record setters in college football. So I said, if he does that with, I'm not saying lower talent, but talent that's, not so highly profiled. And I said, what can he do with the 4-star quarterback that put up good numbers at Stanford and 600 like 24 passing yards against LSU, 5 touchdowns, upset the defending national champs. I'm proud of him. I've seen this coming. A lot of people were really surprised, but to be honest, it doesn't surprise me all that much.
Yeah, no, Mike Leach offense was putting up numbers in the Pac-12. People were discrediting him, saying, "Oh, it's the Pac-12. You don't know the SEC. The SEC won't stand for this." First game puts up NCAA football numbers, like video game numbers. 623 yards of passing by KJ Costello. That offense, I know LSU, we talking about this too. LSU did lose a good amount of their players. Stingley Jr. Was not there too. He got hurt, I believe. He was not in the game, but
yeah, he didn't play.
Yeah. Mike Leach took advantage of that defense, and I was honestly surprised on how well that was working. Some other news in NCAA. I think like 7 SEC teams lost on Saturday, and that was the most I had lost in a long while. The game that I was watching that was a little bit sketchy was Georgia versus Arkansas. I know it's not a high-profile game, but that game was 7-5 at halftime, and Georgia, they figured out the quarterback situation in the second half, but I don't know. It's just weird. But I think it's just everyone's getting back into football. It's their first week playing against somebody else. We're going to have some weird scores like Kansas State beating Oklahoma. We're just going to have a little bit of weird stuff just in the beginning because everyone's getting used to this new normal. Anything else that happened Saturday that you liked? Oh, we got Pac-12 coming back too. That got announced.
We got Pac-12 coming back November 6th. And like I said, this is going to be a very interesting year for college football because, a lot of different schedules. A lot of teams didn't have the usual preparations that they have. So we might be seeing a lot of upsets. I wouldn't be surprised if we see, a team in the Power 5 conference championship game that just no one expected to be there. It's highly possible. Oklahoma losing, like you said, huge loss. And especially with the shortened season, one loss really might be like a dagger for a team. What we have to see, Oklahoma still has to play, teams like Oklahoma State and everything. I think Oklahoma State, they're looking good. I thought that they had a chance to win the Big 12 this year. And after Oklahoma's loss on Saturday, Oklahoma State looking like they could potentially be the favorite. It's just going to be an exciting season. It's going to be an unpredictable season. And I think that's what makes college football so great is the unpredictability of it all. 2007 is regarded as one of the best college football seasons of all time, just based on how unpredictable, all the upsets. And in a year where, you get not too many upsets, you get the two teams that everyone expects to make the championship. Those years just aren't as fun. And I think this year's a little different. I do think still, at the end of the day, it's going to be Justin Fields versus Trevor Lawrence in the national championship, Ohio State, Clemson. I'm still sticking with that. But I think the road to get there, there's going to be a lot of twists and turns that no one's going to see coming.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into this take later in the year once we've seen most of these guys play. But I like Justin Fields more than Trevor Lawrence right now.
And to me, that's not a hot take. That's not a hot take at all. Even based on the play last year, Fields, I think, put up 40 touchdowns to 1 interception.
Yeah, I know. That's something crazy like that. But I don't think he even went over 4,000 yards, which got to see him do a little bit more. But right now, I like Justin Fields over Trevor Lawrence because I feel like Trevor Lawrence does get stuck in his reads at times. And, Ohio State's offense is just – Ryan Day runs it perfectly. They move the ball around tremendously. It's just right at this moment, I would take Justin Fields over Trevor Lawrence. All right, moving on from Saturday, moving back to Thursday, actually. Starting off with our recap, Dolphins versus Jaguars. This one is one of our picks that we split on last week, where you had Jaguars, I had the Dolphins. Fitzmagic showed up, and before we get into the recap part, I just have my favorite Fitzpatrick stat right here. So Ryan Fitzpatrick has defeated the Jets as a member of 6 different teams. Defeated the Jaguars as a member of 6 different teams. And that to me is just crazy. Like, he's been around the league so much, and yet the Jags have been terrible this whole time. All right, so yeah, as I was just saying, Ryan Fitzpatrick's been around the league a long time. Always ends up beating the Jaguars. This game wasn't really even particularly close. Dolphins
It
pulled out
wasn't.
early and just kind of kept the foot on the gas. Ryan Fitzpatrick he threw for 160 yards. Myles Gaskin, he was looking nice throughout the whole game. It's just, again, Jordan Howard came in and got that little vulture touchdown. I think his stat line on the year, they project him to have he's on pace to have 16 or 18 touchdowns with 70 yards rushing. Because he's literally only, if they're within the 5-yard line, they're handing it off to him. Outside of that, he doesn't even see the field. But in this game, I mean, the Jaguars look like what everyone said they were going to look like. They just didn't look like they were supposed to be on that field. James Robinson had a solid day, but the Dolphins kind of handled this game. It wasn't, to me, watching this game was over by halftime.
Oh yeah, no. I'm pretty sure the first 2 drives, Miami, when they had the ball, they went straight down the field and scored. And you're right, the Jags looked exactly how everyone expected them to look this year. It almost, kind of. I'm glad the Jags lost. They moved to 1-2, division rival. But it hurts because the Colts really lost to the Jags. I mean, I know it's a different Colts team now, than week 1. Week 1 was, a lot of jitters, no preseason, a lot of they needed to get the chemistry on that defense. But if I think if you play, the Colts and Jags play right now, you're going to be a different result than what that week 1 was. But overall, Miami, Fitzpatrick, I think I can't remember what our predictions were for when Tua is going to come in this year. I think it was
we said
6 or something.
No, it was later than that because we had them.
Was it later?
Because it was Jets.
You're right.
When it was
bye
week
Jets, yeah.
So it's week 9 or 10.
Fitzpatrick right now doing a good job of really no questions of replacing him already because he had a phenomenal game on Thursday.
Perfect game manager. He's not going to win them games. He's not going to lose them games, and that's exactly what he did. We'll get into this next show, but I think they're going to get destroyed next week by the Seahawks.
Oh, yeah, they will.
All right, moving on from that game, we're moving to New England Patriots defeating the Oakland Raiders 36-20. This game at times did get close, but Patriots pulled away in the end. Cam Newton didn't have his best day, only threw 160 yards, touchdown, and a pick. Rex Burkhead, on the other hand, he was their running game was the name of the game. That's how they beat the Raiders. Raiders couldn't really stop them running the ball at all. And on offense, the Raiders they missed Henry Ruggs, someone that can get Darren Waller open, because Henry Ruggs was the reason against the Saints, how they were getting Henry Ruggs running those deep routes was getting Darren Waller looks over the middle. And without him, they were really missing him, and all they had to do was focus on Darren Waller, and that offense was pretty much stopped. Hunter Renfrow, he's going to be in the league for a while. As he doesn't look like part of the receiver, but he definitely plays the part. He's like that Wes Welker type where he just makes plays. You throw the ball to him, he's making plays. Not the fastest guy, not the biggest guy, but consistent.
Yeah, I agree. Renfrow, he's a scrappy little guy. He's exactly like that Wes Welker type player where, he's going to get open. He's going to get his yards. He's going to get a lot of stuff. Not always going to get, the big play, but he's got good hands. He's a good route runner. And, he's a Clemson legend. I feel like he was there for 20 years. But now he's in the Raiders. And I think I could, like you said, he's going to be in the league for a while. I could see him having a good, 10 to 15-year NFL career.
Yeah. Yeah, the Raiders, they had chances to take this game. They never hit that next gear. And then with the Bill Belichick-led team, if that other team can't hit the next gear, he's taking over and he's winning that game. Do you have any other thoughts on that game, or that kind of felt like a little one-sided near the end?
It really did. I mean, we did take the Patriots, even though the Raiders did beat the Saints last week, but they weren't, like you said, they weren't able to put in that next gear. And that's kind of just what I expected kind of from this Raider team this year. They're going to be solid, but sometimes they're not going to be able to put it in that next gear against these great teams like New England. And I think New England, we were talking to preseason, predictions, but they're going to be a threat this year. I could see New England getting a playoff spot this year, no problem.
Yeah, it was really more of a sloppy game than it was bad. Like both teams shooting themselves in the foot, but in the end, the Patriots pulled away. All right, so moving on from that game, we go to the game that got me the most mad was Rams at Buffalo. Buffalo, 28-3, they had a good lead. Never really felt like they were dominating the game. And then all of a sudden, second half, it kicks in for them. Kicks in for the Rams. They start coming back, almost complete the victory with they were up 32-28. Then that Buffalo Bills on that last drive converted like a 3rd and 15 or a 3rd and 22. Then, oh my, that defensive pass interference on a 4th and 9.
Awful call.
That was a horrible, like the ref decided that game for them. Literally, they both had their hands on each other. The DB was the one that let go first. Josh Allen made the throw. It wasn't even close. Like, that was a horrible call. And the reason I'm more mad about that is because I had money on that game. I had a 4-way parlay going with the Dolphins, Rams, Packers, and Panthers. I had all those teams on there. And literally the Rams were the only team that lost. And I did it in such a bad way. The Bills team, I mean, I give them credit. They took advantage of the Rams' inconsistencies and took advantage of turnovers. And that's what good teams do. They win. Even when a sloppy game, they still find a way to win. Giving up that big of a lead, though, that's going to be something that I'm going to be watching out for the rest of the campaign, rest of the season. Just we've seen what happened with Atlanta. It's kind of like it's flipped right there because the Bills hang on to close leads. Atlanta is losing big leads, but the Bills are still finding a way to win when they give up a big lead like that.
Yeah, that game was pretty wild. That game showed that, Buffalo, they still, while they are a really good team this year, they got some stuff they got to work on. Josh Allen, here's my thing. So my takeaways from this game were in that second half, it solidified, no debate, no questions asked. Aaron Donald is the best defensive player in football. He was single-handedly taking over that game. And, he's just a beast. Already, easy. Early, he's a very, very early front runner for defensive player of the year. And also, too, my other takeaway was in the last 2 years with Josh Allen, if Buffalo would have had that lead, would have given it up, there's no way Josh Allen would have got him all the way down the field. I know that there was the penalty, but last year Josh Allen's not able to get him down the field to get to that position. This year he's really improved. I know that I was not always the biggest Josh Allen believer, but I'm admitting so far that I am wrong about him. He's really shown out this year. I said he needs to improve as a thrower, and he's doing that. And he's got the Buffalo Bills at 3-0 and atop the AFC East.
Let's have this debate real quick. After the showing on Monday night, is Josh Allen the best quarterback in the 2018 class? Because it's really just him and Lamar. Because Baker, he's not there. Sam Darnold's not there. Josh Allen looks like he took that next step that Lamar Jackson has.
Are you forgetting about Josh Rosen or what? I'm just kidding.
I'm a big, I'm a UCLA fan. The Rosen one, but that man, he's going to be playing in like the Canadian Football League next year.
So far, this season, Allen is better than Jackson, but overall, Jackson is still better than Allen. We're going to get into that Monday night game. Jackson had a good game. But if Josh Allen continues to develop and, improve at the pace that he is, I think that maybe at the end of this year, you could maybe be having that debate. But at the moment, Jackson is still the best quarterback from that class.
It's getting close, though. Josh Allen, in my opinion, he took that next step. And with that Bills team around them, they can go pretty far. They just need to clean up a few things.
That's all right. We'll get to the Lamar slander when we talk about that Monday night game.
Yeah, we'll get there later. Just another thing I noticed from the game, Josh Allen reminded me a little bit of Ben Roethlisberger watching that game, like where he's just, even though the pocket's breaking down, like he's just extending plays and moving around and completing the balls that he needs to. And I don't know if you saw that a little bit, but he gave me Ben Roethlisberger vibes from like 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, Allen is, big guy, very athletic. He's hard to take down in the pocket, and that's, reason Big Ben is because it's hard to sack him. And Allen is more athletic than Big Ben. He's a special player, but like we said, beginning of the year, he needs to improve his throwing. So far, doing a good job. We'll just see if he's able to keep it up this whole season.
All right, moving on to the next game. 49ers at New York Giants at MetLife Stadium. More injuries coming out of this one. Jordan Reed is out 6 to 8 weeks. What are your takes from this game?
It went how we all expected, like the Giants, both New York football teams are a travesty right now to the sport. They're absolutely embarrassing. The Niners damn near fielded their second team out there on Sunday, and they still came out with that 36-9 victory. It shows that, the Niners are still a good football team. No matter, the injuries, shows that the Giants are just a bad football team. And I think it went exactly how everyone expected it to.
Yeah, there was this stat that came out after the game. Nick Mullins threw for at least 220 yards in each of the 9 career starts, and that ties Joe Montana for doing the same thing back in the 80s. So probably the 2 greatest quarterbacks in 49ers history, Joe Montana and Nick Mullins. Just putting it out there. But yeah, hey, 343 yards. It's against a trash team. This is what everyone expected to happen. I didn't expect Nick Mullins to actually look this solid, but I'm still gonna wait for him to make face real competition before I make any judgments on him to say if he's improved. The one thing I can say that he's improved in the last couple of years is just his arm strength, thrown with a lot more velocity and a lot more intent. But yeah, this Giants team horrible without Saquon. They have no identity. They might honestly go like 2-14 if they can win 2 games. But yeah, the running game wasn't really getting off to anything. Daniel Jones wasn't doing anything. Their defense was looking horrible. Kyle Shanahan figured that out. Every running back that the Niners brought in was doing something. Probably the best thing that happened this week for the 49ers, other than all this win and the backups looking amazing, Brandon Ayuk, 101 all-purpose yards. Looked like that first-round pick that everyone was expecting, at least the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan was expecting. Everyone else kind of criticized the pick, said he could have had other players, could have Michael Pittman, could have T. Higgins, but Kyle Shanahan stuck with Brandon Ayuk, and so far he's looking pretty good, especially once we pair him up with Deebo Samuel in a few weeks. Then we can really see what he's bringing to the offense. But so far, so good. This 49ers team demolished the Giants. It's not even close. Nick Mullins picking up another pylon, picking up another W.
Yeah, and one thing about Ayuk is, being here at ASU, got a good look at him last year. And yeah, he's a good player. That's what he could do for the Niners. And if they really want to get that offense rolling, once they start getting more healthy, they're going to need him to, him and Deebo to come through because they're very versatile. Ayuk he's a burner, super quick, very lanky. And I think that, he was a good pickup. I wanted the Colts to draft him personally. When the Niners traded up, I was a little bummed, but yeah, no, he's a good one. And he really showed his talent set on this past Sunday against the Giants.
Yeah, the Niners are lucky that all their injuries, if you were to get injured, all of them are happening earlier in the season against bad teams. Because if this happened in like week 6 or week 7, once they start facing like the Rams and the Seahawks, they'd definitely be in trouble. Yeah. But next week we're going to talk about it next show. They're facing the Eagles team, who's probably even more hurt than they are. All right, moving on from the Niners game, we move to Tennessee at Minnesota, which is the game that we also disagreed on. Tennessee comes out with the victory, 31-30. What are your thoughts on this game?
The Vikings, they just really gave it up at the end. Their defense was doing well enough because I think Stephen Gostkowski had, 6 field goals, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, they weren't giving up the touchdowns, but on the offensive side of the ball, Dalvin Cook had a great game, 181 rushing yards. Justin Jefferson had 175 receiving yards. Jefferson had more yards receiving this past Sunday than the whole Vikings team, or not the whole Vikings team, but then Kirk Cousins had passing against the Colts. And, against the Colts, Dalvin only had 60 yards, and he had 181 here. So, that shows, though, the Vikings, though, they can't score. I told you, in our picks last week that I picked Minnesota. I said that they were due for a breakout game, and the stats were certainly there. But when it came down to it, Kirk Cousins had the ball in his hands, needed a field goal, and like we've seen time and time again, he just wasn't able to get it done. And I think his time is really just winding down there in Minnesota.
Yeah, definitely a pickup game from last week. Definitely one that should have won though. Dalvin
Oh
Cook, as
yeah,
we said, went off 181 yards, and this is their key to victory. Like if they could get the running game started and have Kirk Cousins work off of that, that's how they win games. That's their recipe. They have the same recipe as the Browns. If they can get that running game started, their defense is good enough to hold. But this Titans team just ran all over them. Derrick Henry had a big day. Ryan Tannehill, even though he didn't have a touchdown, he was moving the ball and he was doing what he needed to do and put themselves in position. The Vikings ideally would have finished more than they did, but Steven Gostkowski, after that horrendous week one, comes back and proves his worth. 6 for 6, including the game-winning field goal at the end. But yeah, this one it definitely felt like a game the Vikings should have won. But I mean, as we were saying earlier, good teams prevail in these moments. And even though the Titans didn't play the best game, they came through when it mattered. All right, moving on from that game, we go to Browns at Washington, the most hyped game of the week. Baker Mayfield versus Dwayne Haskins. I'm just playing. No one was really caring about that one. But I mean, Baker Mayfield, they found the recipe last week and they stuck to it against the Bengals after that game. Run the ball, feed Nick Chubb, then have Baker Mayfield work off of that. Because they have the receivers to make this work. Nick Chubb is the reason that this team is going to win these games. It's all down to that. Like if you force, I think Baker Mayfield's in that same situation that Jimmy Garoppolo was in last year, where the Niners are running all over everybody, so Jimmy didn't have to show his arm. But for me to believe in this Browns team, I need to see a game where the Browns aren't relying on their run game and have Baker Mayfield win a game for them. Because I mean, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, solid when you have a Nick Chubb and that defense, and you're going against a bad football team. I mean, we'll call it what it is. Washington, they won again week one, but the Browns did what they need to do against bad teams and just beat them. Washington didn't really show anything special. Dontrell Inman was a couple touchdowns. Haven't heard his name in a while. Terry McLaurin still having – he's probably a steal of the draft from last year. But the Browns taking care of business against a bad team. That's all it really was. I need to see more from Baker Mayfield against bad team just so I know he can do it. Because if he's not doing this, he's not playing like great against bad teams. Against good teams like the Ravens and like all the rest of the teams in the division, I don't know if he can finish and be their long term answer. So after this game, I'm left more questioning like, is Baker Mayfield the guy than I am, and is Baker Mayfield the guy, and are the Browns for real? Than just believing anything that Washington has to put out there.
yeah. I mean, looking at some of these stats in the box score from this past game, Washington was actually leading going to the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
Which is very surprising. I mean, it wasn't very. I mean, 34-20. Just matchup wise, not a very appealing matchup. The game, it was whatever. I saw bits and pieces of it, but you're right. Before we're going to be saying if the Browns are for real or not, the fact that Washington was leading going into that fourth quarter kind of just shows you, they're hard to trust at the moment. We got to see them beat a good team first before we could start really, putting judgments on this Browns team.
Yeah, because they're 2-1, but their 2 games they've won has been against the Bengals and the Washington football team. So can't put too much stock into that. All right, moving on from that game. Probably the most confusing game of the week because it ended in a tie. Philadelphia against the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow again putting the team on his back and playing with no offensive line. He was taking shot after shot in that game. Joe Mixon still isn't finding it. I think that's still because of the offensive line too, but this felt like, again, the Bengals should have won. They were pretty much taking care of business the whole time. It's just in the end, the Eagles scored that touchdown, took it to overtime, and we'll get into overtime in a second. But Carson Wentz, he was missing throws that I don't think he should miss. Because I know they're missing receivers. I know that they're missing a lot of people on the O line, but it's just there was a few throws where it's just like he has the guy open, he's just not making them. And which really, I mean, I'll say this right here: Dak Prescott's a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz might have more talent, but Dak is just more consistent in everything that he does. Miles Sanders was the reason that they were still in that game. Kind of, he had a solid day. Greg Ward Jr., former quarterback of the Houston Cougars, go Cougs. He was their leading receiver, which is never something you want to see. Dallas Goedert got hurt. The Eagles are the most hurt team in the NFL and made the most questionable call in overtime. Like that overtime was back and forth, no team really putting it away. But they false started on like a 57-yard field goal, moved back 5 yards with about 14 seconds left in the game, 23 seconds. Like there was barely any time left in the game. And instead of trying for like a long field goal or like trying for a Hail Mary or like a ladder play, they punted it with like 20 something with very little time left on the clock, basically just conceding the game and giving it away and settling for a tie instead of trying to go for the win, which I mean, a tie is better than a loss, but it doesn't really feel better than a loss.
Yeah, very questionable performance from Carson Wentz. I mean, it makes no sense that he's, degressing this much. That Eagles team, I know there's injuries, but this is a game against that Bengals team that they go out, they should win, get their first, put the first win column, first dub in the win column of the season. But something's wrong with that Eagles team, Carson Wentz could take a lot of the blame for it. The coaching, I mean, that move to punt it, that almost shows like they really didn't want to win. I mean, Frank, Doug Peterson, the head coach here in Philly, this, a little Colts connection I got to experience myself. It's going to be 2 years ago tomorrow, 2 years to the date, when I went to Indianapolis to see Deshaun versus Luck, the first matchup. And that game went to overtime, and that was the first year that the Colts had Frank Reich. And, Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator of the Eagles the year before, when they won the Super Bowl. But in that overtime, I can't remember. It was less than a minute left, I believe. Colts were on their own 45. It was 4th and 2. Instead of punting it, they went for it. And that's the opposite of what the Eagles did this past week. The Colts were in a position where they could have said, all right, we're just going to, we're not going to lose this game. We're going to punt it. We're going to settle for the tie. That's all good. But they said, nah, they said, we're going to go for that win. And that's what I'd like to see. Even though the Colts lost that game and they ended up moving to 1-3 after that game, I wanted to see, this new head coach confident with his young players. And, he wanted to win. And for some reason, Doug Peterson, that's a very questionable move right there. It's almost saying like, just throw it in the towel when you still had a chance there. I know the field goal, long shot, but Elliott, their kicker, he's kicked a 60-yarder before, I believe. And
I feel like
it almost shows that he didn't have faith. It almost shows that he didn't have faith in his team to win that game. And that's something as a player, it's a little concerning.
Yeah, it's like they conceded the game. It's just like you need to try. It's like you show your team like, oh, we're willing to settle. We're willing to tie. Because I know a loss, it's bad in the column, win-loss column, and like bad for the end of the playoffs. But I mean, they play in the worst division in the NFL. No team has a winning record in that division. I'm pretty sure if they had lost, they still would have been second place. I don't know. I question that decision, and I think a lot of Eagles fans are too. The question decision and questioning just, is Carson Wentz really that bad, or is he missing all these pieces? All right, so moving on from that game to the Chicago Bears at Atlanta Falcons. Falcons let another one slip away. The Bears scored 20 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. They were up 20. The Falcons were up 26-10, and they blew another lead. I think it was like 29-10 last week. They blew another lead. And Nick Foles, he did come in for Mitch Trubisky, even though Mitch wasn't playing horrible, but Nick Foles provided a spark to that offense that helped them at least propel them to victory. But even I was watching bits and pieces of that game. Nick Foles he didn't play that well either, in my opinion. Like, he did all right. He did a little bit better than Mitch, but I don't know how the Falcons keep losing games like this. Like, they're putting up points on offense, and their defense is just like, Dan Quinn is a defensive head coach, and he's letting games slip away like this. Like, I understand if it was like 3 points or like a touchdown, but multiple score comebacks 2 weeks in a row. he's on the hot seat now because of that. Like, you can't be losing games like this, especially teams like the Bears, whose offense isn't that great. I get their defense is all right, but I mean, the Falcons' running game was on point. Calvin Ridley over 100 yards again. Like, they're moving the ball. They're doing all the right things. It's just they need to close out games. And I was watching I watched the end of that one because they finished after the Niners one, after the Niners game. But there was a time where the Bears punted it away, I believe, to the Falcons, and it was like 4 minutes and 21 seconds left on the clock. And then by third down, the play clock was 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So over 2 plays, they wasted 6 seconds off the clock while they were still up. Like, you can't be doing that. I don't know. How did they let that slip away? They're 0-3. They definitely just deserve to be 0-3 after a loss like that. It's unexcusable. I don't think the Bears team is really that good. I think the Falcons are just that bad.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm surprised Dan Quinn still has a job as we're speaking.
I mean,
after that
Adam
happened,
Gase-
I thought for sure.
Adam Gase saw the
they
job,
were-
so.
Yeah, that's and I after those games on Sunday, I thoroughly thought that Gase and Quinn would be out of a job by Monday. That didn't happen. But you're right. Like the Bears, they're a bad 3-0 team. They're just winning. They're finding ways to
Like,
win
the other
games,
team is losing.
but they're finding ways to win games against bad teams. So this upcoming week, we'll talk about in our picks. They're going to play that Indy team that's red hot on defense right now. That moves the ball well. So we'll really that'll be a good way to know.
That game opened up as
how good they are.
2.5-point favorites for the Colts.
Yeah,
Like
so,
that.
I mean, that
feel
shows
like
you right there. The Bears are home. They're 3-0, and they're an underdog at home. The Bears. So that shows that Vegas doesn't have faith in this 3-0 team. But one thing I knew it was going to happen. That when I saw the Colts and Bears playing Week 4, I was praying Trubisky was still going to be quarterback. Because if Trubisky's quarterback, I think that's an easy dub. But I was just praying that he would played well enough to Week 4, where after this week, after that Colts game, they're like, all right, get this guy out of here. Let's put in Foles. But of course, Foles. I told Nick too when I was watching those games on Sunday. I said when Foles came in, I said, watch, it's the Falcons, it's Nick Foles. The legend Nick Foles is going to continue today. Like, it was almost inevitable. It was setting up it was like a movie script, because the Falcons are just a broken record of just lead and then blown lead and lead and blow. Like, honestly, as a Falcons, any Falcons fans, I apologize, because it must be tragic just watching that week in and week out, where you guys got these huge leads and you think you just have that little glimmer of hope it's going to change, but in your heart, it's just not. Matt Ryan, it's time to officially put the choker label on him. He's still a solid quarterback, but he's just not clutch. It's the great quarterbacks wouldn't let this happen to them time and time again. They just wouldn't.
Yeah, it's a Joe Flacco effect. He got labeled elite and then been downhill ever since. All right. I mean, downhill he's still a starting quarterback. He still plays well. It's just, he's not going to get back to the Super Bowl. Or at least that's how it feels. All right,
yeah, that door's closed for Atlanta.
Yeah. Moving on from that game, we go to the New York Jets and Indianapolis Colts. As we just said, I don't know how Adam Gase isn't fired. Sam Darnold did make a nice play on one of the touchdown throws, but this Jets team has nothing to root for. Like, they're just a bad team. Like, they need a complete overhaul. They can't get anything moving on offense. Their receivers, I think the number one receiver is Chris Hogan and Braxton Berrios. Like, it's not a good look. Frank Gore is your number one running back. Like, I get Le'Veon Bell's hurt, but like literally anybody else. But this Colts defense just took over this game. I think 2 pick sixes.
Forced another safety. Second week in a row.
Like, this defense, as we were saying, number one defense in the NFL. This is what I was expecting them to look like this year. Just DeForest Buckner making plays again. They didn't really have to do much to beat the Jets team. The Jets team is just so bad where it's like you don't have to play well to beat this team. And we were talking about last week how this was kind of a big spread at like 10.5 points, 11 points. This team, I don't know if they're going to be within 2 touchdowns of any other team other than this coming week against the Broncos.
Yeah, it's funny. It's time for, David's weekly Colts analysis right here. But when you really look at the stats, so the final score, 36-7, Indy easily handled business. Their defense
Mo
scored
Alley
16
Cox another
points.
touchdown. Mo Alley
Yeah,
Cox.
I mean he's developing nicely. Once Doyle and Trey Burton return, it's gonna be a nice little 3 tight end set you got right there. But the Indy defense scored 16 points. They outscored the Jets offense by more than double. And when you look at the stats, though, statistically, this was Indy's worst game of the season. This is the game where they put up the least offensive yards and they gave up the most yards on defense. And this was the result, but it just shows how bad the Jets are. I told you, last week that I expected the Colts to come out and win huge. You expected it too. And they came out and they did exactly what they had to do. The Jets are just a dumpster fire. I say by week, I mean, it might be even after this Thursday. If the Jets get embarrassed by Brett Rypien,
the pride of Boise State.
If the Jets get embarrassed by Brett Rypien on Thursday Night Football, that Friday they might be showing Adam Gase the door. At that point, they have nothing left. If you lose to this 0-3 Bronco team with Brett Rypien, they just got nothing to root for this year. I mean, like we said earlier too, these 2 New York teams and two New York football teams are a travesty right now. They're awful. And those are the 2 teams that are the front runners for this T-Law race. T-Law or Fields, whoever you think's better. But yeah, the Jets they're awful. I feel bad for all Jets fans. If you're a Jets fan, I'm sorry, I bet it's a hard life. I bet it's a hard life.
All right, moving on from that game, we have Panthers at the Los Angeles Chargers. This one, we both picked the Chargers last week. I felt that the Panthers had a chance to win this game just because it was Justin Herbert's second game in the NFL, and maybe they just played the Chiefs well, and it was an interdivision game, and the Panthers took care of business. They won this game. It felt like a slow game. There was just a lot of back and forth. Panthers putting up, I think their kicker had like 5 field goals. They're moving the ball, just couldn't really finish. But
the ending of the game, holy cow!
Go ahead, take over.
The ending, where the situation was Herbert. They had the ball they needed a touchdown to win, had pretty much no time. One last play. They had the ball in the Panthers about 28-yard line. Herbert completed a pass to, I think it was Keenan Allen, who did the hook and ladder to Austin Eckler. And it was there. If Eckler would have got it, that was a game-winning tug. That was a miracle win, Herbert's first NFL win. It was there, but Eckler just couldn't get his hands on it. When the ball hit the ground, Panthers recovered, game over. Tough break for this Chargers team. We actually have we talked about this weird situation with the Chargers?
No, that came out like right after. No, yeah, because we said that the doctors were like, they might have, it was a fake injury, but it turned out to be completely real. Like the day after we released it, that, oh my God, like their doctors put him in like life danger. Like they're risking his life. They punctured his lung on a procedure it's a routine procedure with like a 99% success rate.
Yeah, I mean, of all teams too, of course, it's the Chargers. That's no surprise there.
I don't even know if they have an analytics department yet.
Like that whole situation was just, we called it. We said it was really weird from the start, and it still is a weird situation. Like I don't know, something. And looking also too at some of these stats, the Chargers did have a chance to win that game. They had 4 turnovers, and Carolina had 0.
Yeah, the Chargers. That's the whole story of the game right there. It's just the Chargers made mistakes and the Panthers didn't.
But I mean, Herbert though, he's looking good. He's looking impressive.
He's looking like a first-round pick, which a lot of people were kind of questioning. They thought he was going to be the bust of that first round. But he looks like a good. I mean, he definitely looks like better than Daniel Jones, who was the 6th pick from the year before. As long as they can build around him and they have Keenan Allen, this team's going to be able to move the ball. It's just cleaning up those turnovers. are they going to be able to do that? And Melvin Ingram got hurt last week. I saw that. So they need somebody to pick up that slack on defense too. But yeah, that whole situation with the doctor puncturing Tyrod Taylor's lung. Like he could potentially be out for the season with that, or he could be back like in a couple weeks. Like that injury is just one where it heals really weird. But that doctor has to be fired by now, and they have to be get someone new in the building. Like that's just unacceptable, especially from some. Like imagine not being able to play in a game and potentially being out for the season because of something that you wasn't even in your control. Like that's just.
And I think did we skip one of the 10 o'clock games? I think we skipped the Houston Pittsburgh.
We did, yeah. Yeah, we can do that one next. Because we did get into afternoon games. Yeah, Houston Pittsburgh. Going on to that game. Steelers comeback win at the end. Texans looking like an actual football team for the first time this season. Just couldn't put up any points in the second half. Sean Watson played a solid game. So did Ben Roethlisberger. James Conner, big day. And Texas running offense. I mean, there's no receivers to be scared of. So they're gonna keep getting stuffed. Randall Cobb finally showing up for them, getting that $8 million right there. Getting a touchdown, 90 yards.
David Johnson did not have a good game.
He did not have a good game. I feel like
average less than 2 yards a carry.
The Texans, they're just missing one player, and that one player was DeAndre Hopkins. Like they're just missing that one person that helps them separate from an average team to a good team.
It's really no debate at this point who won that trade. You know, some people may say it's too early to tell, but no, like the Cardinals straight up won that trade. They won it from the beginning for, how much they had to give up to get D-Hop. And the way both players have been producing, I know that we're going to about to get in the Cardinals game, but they had a rough one this past Sunday. But D-Hop has looked, that connection of Kyle and D-Hop has looked phenomenal so far. And the Texans, like you said, they just look like they're missing something.
And they had that something. Yeah.
They had it, and they gave it away for some reason, And if the Texans don't beat the Vikings this upcoming week, I think you just put a fork in their season. It's over at that point. They're not going to be able to compete.
Yeah. They're just missing that one weapon on offense that's how the running game's not going to get started because no one's scared of Will Fuller because one day he has hands and the next day he doesn't. It's just too inconsistent. All right, so getting back to the afternoon games, Cardinals and Detroit. I don't know if you watched this game, but it just felt like there was something a little bit off. Like where it's just like the Cardinals and Kyler Murray weren't really just putting everything into it. And I don't know. I mean, 3 interceptions, not a great day for the Cardinals, but it's just kind of like the Cardinals didn't feel like they were in this game as much as the Lions were. Like the Lions are playing hard and they're playing to win. Adrian Peterson looks like he's going to play for like another 4 years. He's putting up, I think, 75 yards, not 100, but he's doing really good for them. Kenny Galladay is back. T.J. Hawkins is still progressing. The Lions did everything they needed to, and just they didn't give it away in the end like they did against the Bears. And this Cardinals team, we're talking about that DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray connection. I think they set another record with like most receptions within the first 3 weeks on like a new team or something like that. Another 10 receptions for DeAndre Hopkins. He's not dropping anything. Kyler Murray is throwing a pretty ball. It's just, I don't know. I felt like there was something just off about this game where just the Cardinals felt like they weren't really in the game like they should have been.
Yeah, Kyler didn't have his best game. He had that good rushing touchdown where he kind of, put the Lions defender on skates.
He shook Jeff Okudah.
But Kyler kind of looked like a rookie somewhat yesterday. Some of those throws just weren't there. But like you stated earlier, the Lions team, they were playing hard. They were looking for their first win of the season. I mean, the Lions, after this week, they should honestly be 2-1. Let's be real. They really blew that Bears game week 1. They were looking good there for a second against Green Bay. But then, Green Bay, they've just been on tear this year. But the Lions played hard, and you're right. Something about the Cardinals, they just looked a little off. They just didn't look right in some areas. And, that's a tough one for the Cardinals to drop, where this first 5 games of the season, they should be the favorites in all of them. And to drop it like this, they got to make sure that they bounce back next week and they don't let this happen again.
Yeah, that was a bad loss by the Cardinals. Moving on from this game, we're going to your lock of the week, Buccaneers beating the Broncos, which they did handily. This game was completely one-sided. Tom Brady and Gronk finally got that connection that they were looking for. They were just moving the ball against a bad Broncos team. Honestly, Jeff Driscoll, as we said, Jeff Driscoll got benched for Brett Rippon, who's going to start against the Jets. The Broncos, their season's gone. Like they're gonna get if they beat they're 6-10 by the end of the year. That's good on them. 7-9, amazing. But I don't even see them getting to 8-8 because this offense looks horrible. Their running game can't get started. Like their defense is just giving up big plays. It's a loss season with them and the Buccaneers. This was a completely one-sided game.
Yeah, it was my lock of the week, and rightfully so. Going into this week, the Broncos really not shown any signs of life. The Bucs with Brady, they got too much talent. They had way too much talent on offense to not score more points in this Broncos offense, and that's exactly what happened. Brady, solid day, very, very solid day, just a little under 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ronald Jones, had an okay day.
I'm surprised about Ronald Jones out carrying Leonard Fournette.
Like yeah, something's not right. I thought by now Fournette would be running back number 1, but that's just not how it's going so far. But yeah, this Bucs team 2-1 and lead that NFC South, and that Broncos team, they're in for a long season. We said it earlier, against the Jets. When we were analyzing the Jets game, that Bronco Jets Thursday night football game, that's gonna be a real stinker.
This has to be one of the worst games of all time. I was looking at the Thursday night schedule. It was Broncos, it was Bengals and Browns last week, and then it's gonna be Broncos just this week. After this week, it does get better.
It gets a lot better.
We get Chiefs and Bills in week 5, I believe. So it's gonna get a lot better soon. It's just this game is gonna be boring. We'll get into that next show, but it's just
we might see boring. With both teams combined, maybe 400 yards of total offense. It's gonna be a bad game on offense. Sloppy game on defense. It's just going to be a boring game. I don't even think I might tune in for like 10 minutes, if that. I don't even think it's going to be worth tuning into.
All right, moving on to the next game. Cowboys at Seattle. This is what we were talking about. These last games were potential game of the year material games. And this one proved out to be the hype. Solid back and forth game. Dak putting up stats of Russell Wilson, 5 touchdowns for a second week in a row, getting the ball to everybody. Chris Carson, their running game is the only thing that's not really getting them there. But they beat this Cowboys defense that was bad. It was a good back and forth game. Cowboys had a chance in the end, but Seahawks had a better quarterback. That's what it comes down to. Their quarterback was making more plays. The Cowboys they made too many mistakes in this one to come back from. Running game never really got started. Dak Prescott had 2 picks. It's against this Seattle team, if you're making more mistakes than they are, if you're losing the turnover battle, you're not going to beat them. Like, you have to play a perfect game to beat Seattle. And the Cowboys, they got close, but Seattle's just a better team than them. DK Metcalf had a little Deshaun Jackson moment right there where about 2 yards away from the end zone, just caught the ball, got it popped out by Trevon Diggs. That was probably the worst play. They should have had a touchdown on that one, but to me, the Seahawks should have won this game by more. It did get pretty close in the end, and it was a pretty fun game to watch.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, my MVP pick, just balling out this year. Most touchdown passes thrown through the first 3 games of a team season in history, I think. Russell Wilson with 14. He threw 5 this week. He threw 5 last week, if I'm not mistaken, 4 the week before. And, he balled out. And you're right, it was very close at the end. Actually, Dallas had the lead 31-30 with under 4 minutes. Wilson went down the field, threw his 5th touchdown pass. They got the 2-point conversion. But one takeaway, too, is that this Seattle defense, they're not very good.
Oh,
I know they traded for Jamal Adams, but they're giving almost an average of 500 yards.
Well, Jamal Adams got hurt, too.
Yeah, I mean, if you take Russell Wilson off this team, this Seahawks team
Oh,
is 0-3.
yeah.
And he's just proven why he's an MVP. But very exciting game, very very exciting game. I mean, Dak went off, 472 passing yards. One thing I will mention was, did you see the Chris Carson injury?
Yeah, Tristan Hill with the gator roll. And
What did you think about that?
I mean, I know that they do gator rolls. That's just how you bring somebody down, but
It was very late.
that was
That's
a
my
dirty
thing.
play. That was just a dirty play. Yeah, like he was already down easily, and then you go for the roll. And I think Chris Carson, he wouldn't have gotten hurt if an offensive lineman wasn't falling on him at the same time. So the gator roll coupled with that lineman falling on him is he couldn't move his leg, and that's why he got hurt. But that's just a dirty play. It was way after the play was over, and now he's going to be potentially out a couple of weeks just with a knee sprain because of that. And this Cowboys player is going to get his from offensive lineman the rest of the season. Like dirty players, you're going to get somebody back for that. All right, moving on from that game, we go to the Packers and the Saints. This one, not much defense was played by the Saints. Packers only actually punted one time, I believe. This one, even though it was close and both teams are going back and forth, I felt comfortable about the Packers. They felt like they were moving the ball smoothly. I felt comfortable with them like winning this the whole time. Like there's no point where I was like scared that they were gonna start getting behind in the game. Like Aaron Jones, solid game. Aaron Rodgers being able to pass the ball around. And if they're able to put up offense like this without Davante Adams, that's what's going to be scary. Once they get Davante Adams back, he opens their offense up a little bit more. They're like we said earlier this year. Last year's team was 13-3 and didn't feel like it. This year's team might be 13-3 and they're definitely going to feel like it. Like they're dominating everybody they play. Saints really missing Michael Thomas. They're not getting anywhere without him. Emmanuel Sanders finally getting involved in the passing game. But Alvin Kamara, 6 carries. I mean, he led the team in receiving. He's basically the number one receiver. And I don't think that's a winning formula for them. Like, they really need Michael Thomas to come back.
Yeah, some comments I have on this game. Quick shout out to my boy Kev. It was his birthday. We watched this game at his place. He's a big Packer fan. Go Pack Go. And the first half of the game was a little weird because it seemed like it had no flow to it. The score going into halftime was 17-13 Saints. In the second half, it really picked up. Became a good football game. But yeah, this Packer team, like you said, they're putting up these offensive numbers without Davante Adams, the number one receiver. That's not going to be a good sign for the rest of the league. This Packers team is putting up almost 40 points a game so far. And like we said, missing Adams the last 2 weeks, but they're a real threat in the NFC. Last year, going to the playoffs, they were honestly, when I had my my NFC power rankings going to the playoffs last year, Green Bay was near the bottom. Honestly, I just didn't think they were that much of a threat at all. They really weren't. But this year, they're a team I would not want to play, right now or in the postseason.
All right. Moving on to the last game of the week, Monday Night Football. Chiefs dominate the Ravens. At least that's what it felt like. At least the first half of the game, the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter got a little bit iffy, but Chiefs put them away. What were your thoughts on that game?
So, I mean, I guaranteed last week, a Chiefs victory. Mahomes, a lot of people this past week here and the Chiefs haven't been playing that great this year. Mahomes is going to go off on that Chiefs defense, yada, yada, yada. But Mahomes just has that X factor, it's like the Madden superstar X factor, and that when the lights are the brightest, the moments are the biggest, he always comes through. I don't think there's ever really truly been a time where Mahomes hasn't come through when he needed to come through. A lot of times, it's happened a few times so far in his young career that his defense has failed him. But I think in almost every situation where he needed to come through, he always has. I mean, I've said it since 2018, that when it's all said and done, he'll be the best quarterback to ever play the game. When it comes to the talent, when it comes to the stats, when it comes to the rings. And he's just – I don't think we could ever – I do not want to hear ever that Lamar is a better quarterback than Mahomes. I don't ever want to hear it because a quarterback is somebody that could throw. If you're a quote unquote quarterback and you run better than you throw, you're not a quarterback. You're a running back that could throw it occasionally. But Mahomes is the true definition of a dual threat. I mean, first drive of the game, he got it done with his legs, a rushing touchdown, and he put up, I think, 380 yards through the air. That one passing touchdown to Tyreek Hill, I believe, was it in the second quarter? Second quarter, where he lobbed it. Just perfect coverage. Tyreek Hill coming down with it, jumping up. And some of the throws Mahomes was making were just absolutely insane. That passing touchdown to Mecole Hardman in the second quarter as well, where he backed up all the way to his own 40-yard line and just zipped it in there. Perfect spot. I mean, I don't even think Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers could do that right there. It's debatable. But Mahomes yesterday, I mean, it seems like a lot of people so far have been disrespecting him, really not, give him the credit. And he came out there yesterday and he, said to everyone, hey, we're still here. I mean, the KC put up 517 yards of total offense compared to Baltimore's 228. Time of possession, KC won. KC had 29 first downs. Baltimore had 16. I mean, this game, like you're right, in the fourth quarter, it was 27-20, but it never felt close. Right out the gate, after those first two possessions by each team, it just felt like the Chiefs were absolutely dominating. And I was saying this earlier that if you take away that fumble in the red zone by the Chiefs running back, I can't even remember his name. He was not even Edwards-Helaire. Yeah, something like that. When you take away that fumble in the red zone, when you take away the missed extra point, the missed field goal, and that kickoff return touchdown by the Ravens, this game could have easily been like 45-13 or something like that. It was not even close. And the rest of the league has to be thinking, like this is not good, because Mahomes, 31 for 42, 385 yards and 4 touchdowns. If people weren't happy with Mahomes' performances so far this season, he's back and he's better than ever. And it's the Ravens. They had a reality check, because Lamar, 4 losses in the regular season in his whole career, and 3 out of those 4 to Mahomes. And this Chiefs team, to people saying that Baltimore, is either a Super Bowl favorite, AFC favorite, no, the Chiefs are still the favorite. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah, no. So I did pick the Ravens in this one. I thought the defense was going to hold up pretty well. I think that Chiefs game last week against the Chargers was just kind of a fluke game. Like, they always play the Chargers tough. The Chargers always play them tough. It's always a close game. It's a division rival. It's just weird. But this is the Chiefs team that everyone's used to watching. This game, I felt like it was over at halftime. It was 27-10. Then the Ravens did get a little bit of momentum when they tied it up at the beginning of the fourth. They're down 7 beginning of the fourth quarter when it was 27-20, but they could not stop that Chiefs offense at all. That throw to Tyreek Hill, as you said, perfect. Throw to Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman on the double move. Patrick Mahomes about to get hit falling backwards throwing that, and he put it in a bucket right on the numbers. Like, then as you were saying, like, I think there are 2 other quarterbacks, like Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers potentially. Russell Wilson, there's not that many people in the world that can make that throw that he made. And this game, it looked close in the score column at one point, but it did not feel close at all. The Ravens couldn't get that running game going, and that's the detriment of them. That's what's always been Greg Roman's downfall, is once they get down big, passing becomes the problem. And as it with Colin Kaepernick, if he couldn't use his legs, if he relied on the arm, it's hit or miss. And Lamar Jackson was missing a lot. I mean, he did have Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews did have some key drops. That's not on Lamar, but not even to throw 100 yards on a KC defense that's not that great, and you have one of the best O-lines in the league protecting you. They needed to do more than what they did.
Exactly. And it's Monday night, one of the most hyped games of the year. Lamar could finally put a lot of that talk of, he's just chokes in the big moments. This is his chance to one-up Mahomes. And he fell so flat. He fell very, very flat. And like you said, this Baltimore team, that they're really not built to fall behind early. it showed last year in the 2 losses they had in the regular season against the Chiefs and the Browns. They fell behind early, just weren't able to recover. Showed in the divisional round against the Titans. The Titans came out quick, and it just like this Ravens team gets very shell shocked when they're not leading at halftime. They just get shook, and Casey really just put the foot on the gas, and they never looked back. They never looked back at all. I have one more takeaway from this game, but yeah, like we were saying, KC, they only scored 7 points in the second half. 7 points in the second half, and they still were in control of it the whole time. Like, it was never a question. And it's just, I'm just so adamant about this, but if you still say after this game that Lamar is better than Mahomes, you just don't know football, and I don't think that's debatable. It's just not debatable at this point.
I don't know who was even debating that in the first place.
I know a few people
outside of Ravens fans. Outside of Ravens fans.
Other than that, no, I don't know anyone that says that Lamar is better. But I mean, Ravens fans, they gotta face the reality that Lamar is not on Mahomes' level, and he will never be on Mahomes' level ever.
Make sure your roommate listens to this. I want to have him hear this take too. All right, that's it. That's the end of the week right there. Chiefs. I'm never picking against them again the rest of the year. That offense is too electric.
Like you said right there, too. Chiefs were an underdog for the first time in I don't know how long, and I should have jumped all over it.
3.5
all over it. I don't think Mahomes will ever be an underdog in his career again. We'll have to see, but it's unbelievable that they were 3.5-point underdogs. And like I said, I should have made this my lock of the week, my guarantee of the week, because I don't know why. I just had a feeling. I was just so confident that, and like I said, people were saying that, oh, Mahomes, like he didn't look too good against the Chargers, yada, yada, yada. But no, he just he's a big moment player. That's exactly what he is. When the Chiefs need him to come through, he's going to come through pretty much every single time. Every single time.
Patrick Mahomes, out of anybody, is having the best 2020. Won a Super Bowl, best quarterback in the league. Madden cover.
Got engaged.
They just announced that she's pregnant. So he has a kid on the way.
He signed that $500 million contract.
$500 million contract. Like this year.
He's a part-time. Is he a
part-time owner of the Royals? Yeah.
I mean, this dude is living the 2020 that everyone wishes that we were living in right now.
Yeah. He is living the best life out of anybody this year. All right. So that's all said and done. Great recap. Fun show. Anything else you want to talk about?
All I could say is, I'm excited for week 4. I think it's, we're the first 4 or 5 weeks of the NFL season are always interesting because you're really figuring out which teams, what teams are really made of. And we're kind of getting to that point where we're going to kind of know, but week 4, it's going to be a big week because there's going to be some good matchups right there. Some good matchups.
Yes, sir. All right. And with that, that's the end of the show. As always, you can reach us at NoCapSport on Twitter and at NoCapSport@gmail.com. Please reach out. We want to talk to anybody. So we